Hello. Today's video letter is going to be a little different. I'm not going to really catch you up on what's been going on because I just talked to you on Skype and you kind of already know what's going on. But I think I mentioned that when Shezna and I were in line for the movie, like we had nothing to do. Like all these people were playing dominoes and playing cards and all these things. We're like, damn, we didn't bring anything. But we ended up having this really kind of awesome conversation about Disney villains. And it was actually pretty time consuming because we're nerds and we were kind of ranking them on who was the most badass and why. So I'm gonna kind of break that down for you. The villains that we talked about the most were, let's see, we talked about Gaston, Jafar, the evil queen from Snow White, Scar, Ursula, and Maleficent. I'll start with Gaston. I consider Gaston a badass villain because, I mean, come on, he shanked the beast in his kidneys. That's just kind of evil. And so we were basically going on like how gruesome they were and like how mean, and he was a douchebag. Let's put it that way. Yeah. So like, you know, he put up a pretty good fight against the beast, so he obviously is pretty strong and has good fighting abilities. And like I said, what is a worse way to attack someone than to stab them in their kidneys when they're not even looking at you? It's totally evil. He's vile. So yeah, he was on the list, but he's definitely not the most badass. We talked about Jafar, who was considerably really evil. I mean, obviously he wants to take over Agrabah and he wants to be the Sultan and everything. But our biggest thing with him was he was a good villain because he was so damn creepy. Shezna and I both agree that he's kind of pedophile material. Like, Shezna, I clearly remember, like, I would not touch him with a 10-foot pole. And I'd have to agree, he's really, really, really creepy. He has that ick factor. And she was saying, you know, like when he kisses her in Aladdin, that just freaked me out. Like, yeah, that was kind of gross. Like, awkward to watch. You were just kind of cringing, like, ew, 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 pull away, pull away! Ah, ah. He makes the badass list for the ick factor and just his face. Like, look at his face. He's an evil bastard. Shezna asked me about the queen from Snow White and like how I would rank her evilness and her badassness. There's something kind of badass about someone who would poison an apple to kill their stepdaughter. Like, that's pretty bad, you know? And the fact that she transformed herself into this hideous hag just to get it done, like, that was the thing that I liked most about the queen, is she didn't have someone else do her dirty work. She did it herself. Like, she didn't just randomly put this poison apple in the house and hope that Snow White found it. No, she fucking went there and coerced that bitch into eating it. So yeah, she gets definite badass points for that. And then of course we had to debate Scar and how evil he was, because The Lion King is Shezna's favorite Disney movie, and Scar, let's admit it, was badass. He tried to murder his nephew. But my whole thing was, he wasn't as badass as my favorite, most badass villain, because in a really twisted way, his thinking made sense. Like, I mean, I get why he was doing it, even though it was ridiculously evil. Like, he had a reason for doing it. So, you know, he wanted to be the king of Pride Rock. He already got rid of Mufasa, obviously, and then he got rid of Simba, right? Well, he thought he got rid of Simba in the same exchange, you know? He had Mufasa trampled, which was awful, and then he convinced Simba that it was his fault and made him run away. So, you know, bam, he's the king. His thinking was totally power-driven. He wanted to make his life better. He wanted power and control. That's why he did it. I'm not saying that if he didn't have the chance to kill Simba for no good reason, maybe he wouldn't, but I think that was like the only reasoning behind it. So, I mean, he's still a badass and still evil, but his thought process in a really twisted way made sense. And then, of course, we talked about Ursula, and we're trying to think, okay, was there a reasoning behind hers? Yeah, hers was actually really similar to Scar's. I mean, granted, she wasn't related to the person that she was trying to screw over, so that makes her a little less badass than Scar, because let's face it, trying to murder someone you're blood related to makes you pretty evil, and definitely gives you more evil points. But I mean, she was willing to steal the voice and ruin the life of a poor innocent girl just to be Queen of the Sea. Kinda not the nicest thing in the world to do. So, you know, I mean, I get it. Like I said, she wants the power and is willing to do anything. So her thought process makes sense, but she's still evil. So Ursula's a badass. Not as badass as Scar because he tried to murder a relative, but badass nonetheless. There are two that we didn't talk about that night, but now that I think about it, I should have brought up. So there's Cruella de Vil, who wants to murder innocent puppies to make a coat, which, yes, I agree is very, very evil. Very, very evil, because I love puppies. But in the grand scheme of evilness, not as evil as the other ones we've talked about. And then, of course, there's Hades. He's the freaking king of the underworld. Of course he's evil. Still not as badass as my favorite, but evil. I mean, you can't be the king of the underworld without being evil. Which also makes you badass, because he had flamey blue hair. That's all I'm saying. And of course, the creme de la creme of evilness, Maleficent. My favorite Disney villain of all time. Why is she such a badass? Let's see. Why did she choose to sentence that poor infant to death? Because she didn't get an invite to the party. That's some pretty extreme thinking. You didn't invite me to your party, I kill your baby! Like, which makes her a badass. And she turns into a flippin' dragon! Like, hello? That was my little rant about Disney villains. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you agree that Maleficent is number one. That's two. One. But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed that. It was random and crazy and shows just how much of a nerd I am. Such a nerd. A very, very big nerd. Perhaps the nerdiest nerd you know. Alright, Sarah. That's it for today. Maybe next time I'll give you my breakdown on why princes are so badass. Alright, I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye! This was fun last time. Figured I'd do it again. Take a drink with yourself. Difficult. Well, Katie, here's to you. Well, why, thank you. Here's to you. I love orange juice. See this, Sarah? I'm drinking out of a mason jar. Do you know why? Because it reminds me of you. The other day, my dad saw this in the cabinet. He's like, why is there an empty pasta jar in the cabinet? I said, because I'm using it to drink out of. But we have glasses. Yes, I know, but isn't it pretty? Not particularly. Like, it reminds me of Sarah. Leave me alone. He's like, all right. Walked out of the room. End of story. I guess it wasn't that good. Oh well. Bye!